Hi everyone. Hello. It's me again, Faraha, and I'm once more joined by our BSL interpreter, Emily Quigley. I'd like to welcome to the stage Gill Wildman, who is SWCTN's Business Development Advisor. And Gill is going to be introducing us to another set of our prototype teams. Over to you, Gill.
Thanks, Faraha. So I have the pleasure of introducing you to another 4 of the prototype teams, and we are going to show a series of films in just a minute. My name's Gill Wildman. I'm Business Development Advisor for Watershed and Southwest Creative Technology Network. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a white cis woman in my 50s with short curly blonde hair, today a white shirt and a pebble necklace. And welcome. This is really great to show more of the work. So in this celebrate session, we also want to celebrate the prototype work that's been taking place. And again, we've had 8 agency at Noel West Media Centre produce a set of films for us. So with that in mind, let's roll film.
Vana is an afforestation and nature rewilding with data app. We aim to aggregate all the necessary data for companies and other organisations to be able to make decent decisions about rewilding and fixing our climate using the land assets that they have. Vana will have many different forms, just as a tree has many different branches. We think that Vana will be a standalone app. You will also have Vana as a desktop workspace, but also Vana will be a number of available data streams that can be pulled into other applications. Vana was born out of a real desire to turn companies that seem to be passive or appear to be passive into proper corporate activists saving the planet, using the assets they already own, especially and starting with land. So we're trying to change that view by enabling them to see the assets that they have at their disposal and what could be done with just a little bit of imagination and a lot of data for the business case. So we give them the data they need to take back to the board to help them make those decisions. So what we don't want to be is a stick to companies and organisations that hold land. We're all about transparency, but we're not about embarrassment. We are about giving people and organisations the chance to step up and change what they're doing. We need a new kind of land army for this battle. It won't be won by stealing resources from other people and shoring up and isolating ourselves. It comes from working together, looking at everything that we've got and throwing everything that we've got, from our personal ability to get our hands in the soil, through to the land that we've got, through to the passion that we have and our knowledge of the atmosphere and nature and how to fix things. We need it all right now.
Our project is to use AI cameras to decode the bees' waggle dance so we can understand more about where the bees are foraging for their food. The waggle dance is the only insect language that we can decode, but at the minute it has to be done by humans manually. It takes ages. What we're trying to do is create a hive which we can do in real time with AI cameras and create a live stream for public engagement as well. We're putting tubes on the front of the hives, and then when the bees walk down the tubes, they leave a kind of pollen residue on the tube, and that will tell us exactly what species of plants they're going to. Using the bees as a biosensor, we can work out if there's any gaps within the foraging radius of the beehive, and we're creating seed packet recipes to address any floral gaps, not just for the honeybees, but for all the other wild insects and pollinators as well. So last year we did a crowdfunder and we raised enough funds to give every child in Plymouth a packet of seeds, 36,000 of them, and in September we're going to do a mass sowing day. Anyone can get involved. You get access to all the beehives, all the kit, The knowledge, we have honey shares, so everyone gets an equal share. We will be offering training, and eventually each beehive location will have a beekeeper and a beekeeping group. And then Simon is going to be making regenerative music to go with that, so then we can plug in and listen to the bees and how they're interacting with the environment.
So I'll be using numbers which represent changes in certain streams coming out of the hives, and I will attach different types of sounds to those. Once I've done the coding and the composition, the bees themselves will become the musicians.
As a package, what we are as a social enterprise, we're unique.
Be More Circular is a set of tools and experiences to show people how the little choices they make about the things they buy and use and what they do with them afterwards is having an impact on the planet, and we also show them how they can make better choices in a more available and accessible and affordable way than they might have thought. We're going to use a website to bring stories and data around the circular economy to life.
It will evolve into a suite of tools that will give citizens the knowledge and the options to become more educated in this area. We really believe that citizens have the power and they have a choice. We just feel like maybe people need shown like what their choices are and also shown that they can make an impact.
It seems obvious that we all have to change what we do to help avert a climate catastrophe. Our take is that we have to help people make changes right now.
We're in this larger network that needs to be sorted out, and it's not one person can't necessarily do that.
Making a purely digital project is fine. We both have digital skills and we're happy to use those, but we're both makers at heart as well. So we've been sending each other postcards. And we've moved well out of the 2 dimensions of a postcard now. We're both making quite 3-dimensional objet d'art.
It is quite an experimental approach, so we've tried lots of different avenues, getting some tape measure tape and taping this to the inside of my bin, and then I could see at the end of the week how full my bin was.
There is no way that John and I could have embarked on this without the funding and support from the South West Creative Technology Network for helping us turn our ideas into what we hope will become a business.
The work that we're doing at the moment is we're looking at increased LoRaWAN coverage in the city, but also to get environmental information. So putting sensors on the cargo bikes, the e-bikes that Gareth, our project partner, maintains.
Sustainable transport, bicycles, cargo bikes, they have a massive positive effect. You're killing loads of birds with one stone. You're doing exercise, you're being healthier, and it's beneficial for the environment.
So we're looking at building devices like this one. This is a very rough prototype in a takeaway food tub, but it's basically a LoRaWAN microcontroller and some sensors. We're looking to just collect lots and lots of data about conditions, so temperature, light and humidity, and road surface, and anything that looks like it might be useful, basically. Data isn't everybody's thing, obviously, so we'll be generating lots and lots of information about anything we can build a sensor for, but people will see other things that people will build with that data. Maybe the council might want some of the data and they might want to use that to inform what they do with road conditions or air quality measures or whatever, but other people might want to make music from it, you know, or just like cool maps or visualizations, or we honestly don't know. We like to say that what we're doing is trying to take vans off the road, like not all of them forever, but certainly the last mile deliveries.
If a van was to do 200 half-a-mile journeys and a cargo bike was to do 200 half-a-mile journeys, suddenly the benefits become huge. Anybody can ride a cargo bike. You don't have to have a driving licence, and a driving licence can be a massive barrier to work if you're from a challenging position.
So this funding's made it possible. for us to order the parts that we need and just get on with it, and the budget also for our time to do that, because it would have been a passion project otherwise.
Even better if I unmic. Some great ideas there, and I'm really lucky enough to have worked with all 8 of the data prototypes in these past 4 months, which has been a total pleasure. And 4 of them, of the films you've just seen, are going to join me. So I've got some questions for them, and you might have some questions too. So if you have, please put them in the chat and we'll do our very best to get around to all of them. But welcome. We've got Jaya from Vana, we've got John from Be More Circular, Matthew from Pollenize, and Martin from Data Cargo. And first, I'd like you to introduce yourselves a little, if you would. Jaya, can we come to you first?
Sure. I am Jaya Chakrabarti. I am I suppose a former physicist turned data scientist, and I am CEO of Symmetrica, which is building Vana, the afforestation-with-data app. I have black hair streaked with silver, and I'm rocking a wild woman of the woods look. I have 2 thermals on because it's cold in here, brown skin, geeky glasses, and I'm sitting in my children's band room, which has guitars and a chessboard. Does that cover it?
Perfect, perfect. John, would you like to say hi?
Hey everyone, I'm John. I'm a designer. I'm 32 years old and I've got short brown hair, blue eyes. Today I'm wearing a blue and white shirt with a blue blazer, and behind me I have lots of design books.
Matthew, over to you, please. Going to unmute on that, I think.
Thanks. Hi, my name's Matthew Elms. I'm a director of Pollenize. I am an environmental scientist, a project manager, and a builder. My pronouns are he and him. I'm in the corner of my bedroom with a white Pollenize t-shirt on. I am 31 years old. I'm a white man, and I have a mullet haircut and a short beard.
Finally, Martin. Hi.
Thanks, Jill. Yeah, so my name's Martin Howard. I'm co-founder and technology lead of a social enterprise in Plymouth called The Data Place. We're one of the partners on the Data Cargo project. I'm a middle-aged white man. I've got no hair. I'm sitting in a loft and wearing a blue jumper because it's a bit chilly here too as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, everybody. So my first question is, given all of the things we've been through, you've been developing a prototype in a pandemic. How has that been for you? I'd love to hear more. And please, anyone can start.
Okay, I'll take that one. So it's my first pandemic, I have to admit. I'm a noob, so working from home as a tech company was easy. But I think the emotional toll of being a part of a pandemic, watching our families go through it all, has been quite massive and has affected my family personally. Coordinating across the team has been different. We used to do a lot of pubs and debriefs over alcohol and coffee and things like that, and none of that really happened. So we've had to find new ways to connect. But overall, working from home and getting the job done has probably given us far more focus in that way, because we knew that the pandemic has changed the way people think. Mm-hmm. And the work that we're doing now has never been more relevant. People want to come back and do something meaningful. Companies are starting to realize that they can't just be passive in this space. So this has been a very special, crazy time, I think, for us emotionally, mentally, and even physically. But yeah, it's been an opportunity too.
And one of the things is that even as a group of teams, you've never met before. when we normally work with you, we would all be in a space together, you know, hanging out, having formal and informal conversations. And we've done this without any of that. John, how was it for you?
Yeah, there have been quite a few challenges. For example, not having a physical workshop space to build our exhibit in, and the team have not met face to face at all during the prototyping phase, and so we've not had that collaborative time in the studio together. Communication at times has been hard versus too much time spent on calls, and we've not been able to run our community workshops in person. But there has been some unexpected opportunities, and some of these include discovering the use of postcard art as a form of collaboration, and that's opened up new ways of prototyping for data visualization and more. We've also reached wider audiences and perspectives through our online version of our workshops, and we've been collaborating with creatives and agents for change further afield to bring new perspectives into the project.
Fantastic. What about for you, Matthew?
Thanks, Jill. Yeah, I think overall, the pandemic has kind of sped up change and the move over to the widespread use of video calls, conferencing. Although we're obviously limited to doing it on the whole at the moment, I think when things get better, these lessons will be learned and carried over. It's for us, it's been good because we've been able to pull upon an international pool of talent. So we've been speaking to advisors in the US. We have a data scientist in Athens in Greece. So it's really brought the pool of talent together. But the physical real world element of prototyping, getting together, that was the challenge, because there's only so many things you can communicate through a screen. But we did have the opportunity to have a social distance pasty for 10 minutes to discuss our projects with the team. So that was really nice. But I'm looking forward to meeting everyone and spending a bit more time together in the real world when things get better.
That social contact is such an important part of team growth and development. So yeah, even over a distant pasty. Maybe that's the title of the book. Martin, how is it for you?
Yeah, socially distanced pasties are Pollenize's speciality. I think they're really good. Yeah, we've missed the time in person to talk. You miss the moments of serendipity that you sometimes get when you're in a shared space with other people. We normally work in a co-working space in Plymouth, which is one of those places that it's just a good place to go and sit because there's so much going on. But the bigger challenges are emotional ones. I sometimes doubted whether things were really happening because everything's virtual and you see everything through the medium of the screen. And then suddenly you see something pops up and, the results one of the team has come out with, and you think, oh, this is really happening. This is really going. And then you sort of get emotionally grounded and back on track again. Minor logistical challenges because we've been doing a lot of prototyping with sensors and packages of sensors. And so getting those to different members of the team has led to some awkward, dodgy looking socially distanced handovers in service station car parks. And, I'm sorry if anyone had to witness that and thought it was something odd, but, these things happen. There's been a lot of documentation, from a technical point of view, when you're dealing with technical people. And that's the other thing. A lot of documentation has got to go on because you're handing things over remotely to people and they won't necessarily get it without a face-to-face handover. So yeah, those are the elements really.
Yeah, substantial things to work through. Fantastic. Well, all four of you have approached responses to the climate crisis in your different ways. And I'd really love to hear about how that's worked in terms of the prototype development. What have you learned in this process? Let's do the same order. Jaya, do you want to take it again?
Yeah, so what we've learned, I guess, is so what Vana has been doing is attempting to use data to harness corporate activism to rapidly accelerate afforestation and nature restoration. And so we've been looking at corporate behaviour a lot in terms of how they react to what's happening out there, what they're doing in terms of compliance, and all of the other things they normally would be doing outside of a pandemic. And we've learned that actually there's a massive growing movement within companies to play their part. And what they're struggling to do is find out how to do that. So, I mean, that's really the place where data is that if we're able to give them the business case to be able to change that corporate behavior, then they'll do it. I don't think you'll find very many companies that make money when customers are so dependent on clean air and drinkable water and land mass to live on that isn't flooded. So we're all in this together, and it's becoming easier to get hold of that data to be able to make the case for it now, rather than 12 months after year end, or like a report to investors. That's just too late. So we're now understanding that there is a huge market for companies seeking, what their next steps are.
Fantastic. And one of the beautiful things that you do is you offer this, this is what you can do, something that they can actively, do to resolve stuff. That's great. And I guess often when you're looking at climate crisis in itself, you may pick off such a huge topic that's too big to contend with. But I mean, John, if we look at what you're trying to do, you've taken a particular part of it. Can you tell us a bit about what you've learned?
Yeah, sure. So Be More Circular is about empowering citizens to demand better choices from their products and services by helping them to see the impacts and what their decisions have related to the circular economy. So the way we're trying to do that is by getting citizens to interact in a fun way with data relating to life cycle analysis and materials. And it's a huge area. The data is messy and incomplete, but the lack of data is data in itself. And what we've recognised is that we want to put pressure on companies and manufacturers who are making products by giving citizens the power to do that and the knowledge in their hands. And there's changes really influenced by the interrelation, the feedback between the general public, the media and the government. That's what we're focusing on now. That's the issues that are top of mind and what we have in the media at the moment. We want to put transparency in focus to lead to more transparency in the future. So our data is never probably going to be completely 100% accurate or complete. So we're trying to live this as well and be as transparent as possible with the data that we're using to tell our stories.
So, John, what did you learn from actually trying this out? Were there things that you found along the way? So
we learned from looking at the data, it's quite hard to put specific numbers to things as well. So like what we've also done is expand what our perspective of data is and start to bring in some of this more qualitative data into the experience and thread it into stories that are meaningful for the user. So it's very important for us to make sure that the data is presented in a way that it's not overpowering. So a lot of what we've learned is around presentation of data as well, and that comes down to who you're talking to and what is the purpose for them to look at it. So our real goal is to allow people to play around with it and explore.
Great stuff, thank you. And Matthew, for you, your idea is connects with different audiences in a really interesting way. What have you learned by prototyping this kind of thing with these kinds of audiences?
Thank you. I suppose currently there's no real way of assessing the health of the environment. So based on the assumption that you can't improve what you don't measure, by utilising the bees' mass, they're collecting data, but from the end, as an end user perspective of the environment, if we can tap into that with AI cameras and algorithms, we can gain access and insight and share that with the world and then use different visualizations to be able to share with different people's understandings. And another thing that I've learnt, what I learnt along many years ago, is when I was to work on a building site with my dad, was you never walk from A to B empty-handed. So every process, every process, you have to make the most of it, every process, and design in maximum value, so that nothing is wasted and there's always something to be learned. So,
and it certainly shows in the way you approach business and this idea. It's fantastic. Martin, over to you. What have you learned from this process?
So it's quite interesting that Matt says that, and we feel that as well. You know, we've got an opportunity to collect a whole bunch of different kinds of data on the bikes as they go around the city. I suppose making the most of that, making the most of the fact that these things are traveling around, and that we can get as much data as we can possibly eat from them, is a good thing. We've been really encouraged though by the reaction we've had in user research. People are ready for this kind of thing. People are ready to build back, with the planet in mind to some extent. And there's quite a lot of interest in this area, and it feels like for once we're pushing on an open door. So that's a good thing. I suppose relevant to that is, although our product's a response to sort of pollution and cars and vans, it's really about humans and values and putting humans in the middle of things, and nature at the middle of that whole ecosystem at the middle of stuff. So we've had to sort of think around the topic quite a lot. We've had quite a bit of interesting feedback about quality over quantity and quality over efficiency in particular. How in some ways efficiency is a bit overrated. The enjoyment that people get from simply riding a cargo bike is something that's not quantifiable. We can't can't put it on someone's balance sheet, but it really matters to the people who use the bikes. And that's been quite an interesting thing. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Martin. So, sometimes people can think that, looking at the climate and addressing the kinds of issues that we have right now, and business practices are at odds. But I see all of you navigating that in different ways. I'd love to hear from you about, how can a business respond to climate crisis? And please unmute anybody who would like to answer that question.
Can I go first this time, since I've been last couple of times? Yeah. So I think it's about all aspects of the business. I mean, one of the things we did, we used a simple tool towards the end of the business prototyping that you led, Gill, which is the business model canvas. When you start to think about every aspect of that and think about sustainability and baking that into every bit of your operations, every bit of your partner relationships, baking your values and those things into your customer channels, into your revenue model, everything really. And it's quite a daunting thing when you look at it to start with, about how can I be sure that my business is a net positive on the scale of things. I suppose the good news is, of course, that no one gets there all at once. You have to work on it a bit at a time every day. Continuous improvement is something that I believe in, as a business discipline, but also taking advantage of opportunities when they arise. And we have a little opportunity of window now during the pause in traffic during the pandemic to kind of not reclaim the streets. That's someone else's slogan, but to make a bigger splash in the local area in that way. So yeah, and the associated ecosystems. So buying local, low carbon, planet friendly ways of being really, and not greenwash it.
Magic, thank you. Anyone else would like to respond to that?
Yeah, I'll hop in. So from our perspective, which is a very corporate perspective, it is about looking at every asset at your disposal. So I know corporates have had a bad rap, so if it's a business who's trying to get some good things done, in order to connect corporate head to corporate heart, you need to talk to your people, find out what they need to do to feel like they're doing something good towards the end outcome, which is, of course, like a livable planet that's fairer and safer. But companies have so many assets at their disposal already. So they have land, they have buildings, not just people, they have computers, they might be able to donate some time, they have skills. And take a look at it all and look at it. And especially, actually, coming back to what John was talking about in terms of supply chain, suppliers and your leverage over suppliers can be aggregated to make a difference. So if you're asking questions of your suppliers, and everyone does that, we can make a difference. And I suppose that the eternal joke is, well, for me, sort of how many companies does it take to change the world or save the world? And the answer is 26 of them to stop doing damage and several thousand of them to decide not to buy from them until they do.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jaya. There's a few more questions that I've got, and I'm trying to make sure we've got time. If anyone has any questions from the audience, please pop them in the chat so I'm aware of them, and I'll try and get around to them as swiftly as I can. Some of the things we've been looking at in terms of business over this program has also been about inclusion in a business and actively building into your business, you know, a wider scope of all your audiences, and actually making sure that you bring into testing phases, you know, people that you may not have considered, and really kind of starting to unpack the business as an active, you know, actor in terms of inclusion. I wonder, Matthew and John, I wondered if you had any thoughts about how that has been for you in terms of thinking differently.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. So, yeah, it has been a constant process, and I think this is something I wanted to mention as well with the environmental side of things. It's all about continually improving and applying the same kind of attitude that we're taught traditionally in businesses to continue to be improving to this process as well. And there's always more we can do. And some of the ways that we started off on this point was to firstly just be careful about when we had opportunities that we wanted to share with communities, make sure that like we putting it in the right place, using the right language and getting that reviewed, but then also constantly updating that against our goals, and ensuring that we're not alienating anyone from the start or excluding people by what we're saying and what we're asking. It is something that you have to actively engage with, and we've had some success, but we can do better as always. We've had some success with our workshops, opening them up, checking the language, making them accessible to everybody, thinking about how we can provide different ways to access the information. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
Great stuff. Anything from you, Matthew?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a big challenge. Bees, for instance, they've been around for 140 million years. They've utilized data, extrasensory data that we can't even fathom. So they see in ultraviolet light. They communicate through vibration, and they only live for up to 50 days. It's mad. So their lessons and their behavior is passed down through DNA. So to visualize this data for the public understanding, graphs simply can't do it, because it's almost like a feeling. It's a multi-sensorial understanding. It's a bit like a three-dimensional understanding of a five-dimensional thing. Go back to the film Interstellar. But yeah, we need to. It's using the creative technologies, music, and visualization, so us lowly humans can understand the world of the bee.
Brilliant. Thanks, Matthew. And so before we take audience questions, I've got one more for you, which is, what would help you with your business right now? So let's take our reverse order with Martin, Matthew, John and Jana.
Oops. Yeah, thanks, Jill. So, I mean, we want to continue to talk to more people. So we need to research more thoroughly. We want, you know, if anything, additional partners in different geographies that to help us test the products and test our assumptions out. We have a little bit more R&D to do to take the product before we take the product to market, and particularly around manufacturing. So we're likely to need a little bit of funding to support that. And we're also continuing the work on data collaborations too. So keen to find more kinds of data that we can collect. And yeah, finally, I think eventually we need some investment. And so we'll need to talk to some different kinds of investors and assess our options.
Fantastic. What about for you, Matthew?
Yep, thanks. Yeah, we're at a stage now where we've raised capital funding to expand across Cornwall, 32 different sites with AI beehives. But we're gonna need somewhere to assemble these beehives. And we've got the opportunity of having 3 or 4 interns and graduate and student interns over the summer to help out as well. So yeah, we really need a premises really, but it's that bridging finance. How do we do that? It's going to be a bit of a struggle. But yeah, that's life.
And if there's anyone in the audience who knows anybody with any of these kind of things that our companies are talking about today, please get in touch or add some details in the chat. John, over to you. What do you need next?
So we have a prototype for our experience, and we're already talking to small sustainable businesses and local makers who are working in the circular economy space, and we're really interested in how we can support them with what we're doing. So if you are interested or working in that space or have a product in mind that you're interested in launching in that area, we'd be really interested to talk and initially just to get some feedback on what we're building and see if there's any areas that can help you.
Fantastic. And finally, Jaya, what do you need?
What do I need? I want to save the planet and I need to do it in 5 years. But seriously, the number one thing that has dawned on me through all of this work is that we're doing fab work, but we're not doing it fast enough. And ordinarily, I would have loved to have grown organically because I like having a small team and I like knowing what's going on. But the planet won't save itself if we keep going at the pace we're going. So we will need investment. In the meantime, we're going to want sponsorship because we're coming out with some awesome stats and figures and live reporting. And so if there's anyone out there that feels that their organisation would want to be seen to be doing something very visibly with that, and they would chime in with their marketing budgets to do something good with it, well, come and get in touch with me. And also people who, so the people who are watching this will also be employees or even employers. So ask the question, go back to your organisation, to your board, to your line manager and say, what are we doing with our assets? Do we have something that we can do? Do our suppliers own land or something that we have leverage over? Can we volunteer for either tree planting or accounting? Please, if you've got skills in legal stuff, come and find me. I don't need you to plant a tree, but I need you to come and give me some legal advice. Think about the skills that you have and throw everything into it. So yeah, for me, this is about, you know, Vana being a movement. We need, as I said in the video, this is about gathering a land army of everyone working to their strengths so that we can beat this thing. So yeah, that's what I want by Christmas.
Fantastic. Signing up now. So we've got some questions from the audience, and this is one for Be More Circular from Julia Cates. What are the main barriers to collecting circular economy data from manufacturers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. So there's some data sets available, but they're quite prohibitively expensive for small businesses, and what we focused on specifically is like how can we help small businesses and citizens access some of this data. That the data sets that are available, you know, they tend to shine you know, maybe a positive light in some areas of the data, and there's incomplete sections. So what we've really had to do is a lot of legwork to to really explore all the public information that's out there, look at minutes for meetings and everything, and kind of trace everything backwards to try and get to the source, to make some as accurate as possible, reasonable assumptions as to what's happening in particular areas of the supply chain. So in terms of being highly accurate, I don't think it is, but what we tend to do is try to pick out patterns of what the story is telling us, where in particular areas, and then we know what issues to look at. And it's just an iterative process of going through that to find out how we can keep improving the data that we have.
Great. And maybe there's a point at which you start to ask for data in a certain format once you get a huge organisation to push back. Data cargo, we've got a question for you. So how do you deal with the imprecision of location tracking with the data you collect? So for example, GPS having at worst a 10-metre error rate.
Yeah, this is quite common in the prototyping we've done. We've tried to use cheap sensors to keep costs down and enable more data points to be collected by a greater number of bikes. And the answer to the question is, well, we do it by taking lots of. So our approach is that, in particularly with the air quality sensing as well as the GPS. So by having multiple different people on different bikes going past down the same road, that the locations will approximate out to each other, and a clearer picture will emerge. And there's a bit of post-processing to be done there, just to make sure that people are riding their bikes on places where it's actually possible to ride bikes and not across the tops of buildings, although I suppose in some bits of Plymouth that's possible. But yeah, and then also with the air quality data, the council have some very expensive static air quality data collection stations. Our air quality sensors are very cheap, but they're mobile. And so whenever they go past one of the council's air quality sensors, they can calibrate themselves. Eventually, the sensors will then be able to calibrate with each other. And so we're using those sorts of methods to improve the accuracy of our data.
Brilliant. And then next, we've got a question for you, Matthew, with Pollenize. People love the idea of bees collecting data. Are you thinking of expanding this to look at any other areas of the local ecosystem?
Yeah, thank you. So actually, we're embarking on another prototyping innovation project looking at AI image recognition technology of moths. In the UK, there are 2,500 species of moths, and moths are very important at nighttime pollinators. Some of those moths are key indicator species for biodiversity as well. So we'll be looking at AI solutions and genotyping solutions for moths. We're also working with the Roslin Institute, chap called Barnett. He's a molecular biologist, and we're going to be looking at all of the honeybee colonies on the Isles of Scilly. I think there's about 30 or 40 of them, and we're running whole genome testing on them, which would expose even their gut biome, what kind of fungi, what bacteria are in their guts, because it's believed that there's that the Scilly Islands are free of certain diseases, and the area could be used as a genetic conservation zone for the native honeybee. So yeah, there's a few things up in the pipeline other than just your bees.
Fantastic. There's been some great comments also for Jaya around collecting, a really enthusiastic response to what you're doing. We'll have to think about how we can scoop everybody up and get them to you. That's it for this session. I want to thank everybody for coming in and unpacking some of the experience for us of how it's been and some of your intentions. I hope you get all the things you've asked for. And I'm going to say let's take a break and hand over to Faraha, I think. And if not, we're just going to end the session. Thank you, everybody.